All right, guys, let's get into the show. At the top of our quarterback rankings this week, no big surprises there. We have Russell Wilson, and then maybe this is a smidgen of a surprise for some people. We have Josh Allen, number 2, and then Patrick Mahomes, number 3. Davis, how are you stacking your quarterbacks this week? The 3 guys at the top of your board.
So I think there is this really interesting dynamic going on in fantasy football right now where there is a clear tier of haves and have-nots at quarterbacks. Right now, Russell Wilson and Josh Allen are on pace to have the first and third highest fantasy totals ever of any position, any player ever, right? So it's like these guys are breaking fantasy football records, and Mahomes is having a good season, right? I think he had like about 45 DraftKings points on Monday night. Lamar's having a terrible season. Lamar's quarterback 12 right now, and that kind of changes the complexity of it. But the overall point I'm trying to make is you can't be losing at quarterback, right? Like you can't be rolling into your games with Tom Brady. You can't be rolling into your games with Ben Roethlisberger, with Ryan Tannehill. These guys who are even having good seasons, you're getting shellacked by people who have Mahomes, by people who have Josh Allen, by people who have Russ Wilson. I would have them in that order, though, Friedman, that you just laid out.
Really, you have that order?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen was like born to score fantasy points. Like I actually think that over the course of the year, we will see a lot more Chiefs games play out like week 1 and week 2, where the offense looked really conservative and you were just begging them to stop handing the ball off to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, than week 3, where Mahomes, looks like the best athlete, to ever play any sport ever. I actually think they would rather give the ball to Clyde Edwards-Helaire 25 times a game.
Yeah. Andy Reid, always going against the grain. I should say last week I had Josh Allen as my number 1 quarterback, and it felt like a shock when I first did my projections to have him there. And now it just feels like not like totally normal, but like I'm getting used to it. And Sean, you at this point now have Allen ranked in the top 3. How do you stack the top 3 guys?
Yeah, so for this week, number 1 is Russell Wilson. He's in a tier all by himself. And then, I mentioned it last week, just it's so interchangeable with Mahomes, Allen, Dak, even Lamar. I think he'll have a bounce back game, and Kyler Murray, that, they're essentially tied for number 2. I bumped Josh Allen down just a tad, just because John Brown's expected to miss. That could hurt him a bit. But and Mahomes proved last night, he's matchup proof, so I bumped him up a little bit. So right now I have Mahomes number 2 and Josh Allen number 3. But again, Dak and Lamar and Kyler are all right there. So it's any of these top 6 should be in every person's starting lineup in season-long fantasy. The question is for DFS, which guy you should target. We can talk about that in a bit.
All right, Raybon, what about you? How are you stacking the top 3 guys?
Right now, you guys hear that? You guys hear that, don't you?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. All right. Yeah, so right now I'm going Russell Wilson. I agree with Sean. He's got to be in a tier by himself. He's got 14 touchdowns on the year. He's just playing unbelievable. And he gets the Miami Dolphins now, one of the worst defenses in the league. So he's there. I have Mahomes number 2 for now, but him, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson are separated by tenths of a point for me. So I may end up going with Josh Allen number 2 and even Lamar number 3, because this is going to be overreaction week, right? I talked about how Lamar Jackson it was a bad matchup for him against the Chiefs. Yes, they're a terrible run defense, but you're going to need to pass on them at some point because they can score so many points. And this is the second time that, Mark Andrews got shut down. Spagnuolo's just been really good at kind of shutting him down and shutting his top weapons down. And now you're playing the Washington football team. That's a totally different kind of defense. Baltimore favored by 13 points on the road. So the regression could be swift for Lamar Jackson, while I'm a little bit more concerned about Mahomes against the Patriots, just because it's Bill Belichick and, Mahomes coming off the big week. So I may end up flip-flopping those guys and go Wilson, Allen, Jackson. But right now I still have Mahomes number 2 ahead of Jackson and Allen.
So I have Allen number one, and it's super close with Russell Wilson. I mean, like tenths of a point. If you look at the projected fantasy points in our rankings, we have Russell Wilson projected for 25.2 and Josh Allen for 25. So even collectively, like we have those guys neck and neck. And then number three, I'm actually going with Dak Prescott, who I think has a fantastic matchup against the Cleveland Browns, who might be without number one cornerback Denzel Ward, number two cornerback Greedy Williams. He practiced last week, but he's still yet to play this season. And then, of course, without their starting safety for the entire season. And he's crushed historically at home as a favorite. And then it's a game with a very high total, around 55 points right now at BetMGM. So I think just a fantastic spot for him. But Sean, as you said, it's close with all of these guys at the top. But I give the edge to Dak for number three. All right, Davis, I want to get your thoughts on a guy that you are relatively high on.
So, I mean, the guy that I seem to be high on relative to their DraftKings salary and probably where other rankers will have him is going to be Cam Newton. I know that we just saw a running quarterback get punished, against the Kansas City Chiefs. I actually, this might be prepare to load the hot take cannon, but I actually think Cam is a better passer than Lamar. He tends to make the short, 8-yard sideline throws. Like, he's pretty automatic with those. He did have that interception against the Seahawks when he was trying to hit Damiere Byrd, but he's like a lot better at that. And especially at staying in the pocket and stepping up and making that throw. So I don't think we are going to see the Chiefs blow out the Patriots the way that they blew out the Ravens. And Cam is the best goal line rusher in football, right? He has 3 rushing touchdowns through 2 weeks. They really didn't need him to play at all against the Raiders. I mean, they probably could have won that game with Stidham, but Rex Burkhead had the 3 touchdowns on, I think, only 13 total interactions. Maybe I had a bunch of targets, but basically Cam Newton is going to get like 22 fantasy points at a minimum this week and probably can get up to like 35. And I imagine when I sit down to do my rankings this week, he'll be like my quarterback 7 or 8 probably.
Yeah, Davis, I'm right there with you. He's the guy that I've also kind of highlighted as someone I'm high on. I have him at QB7. Sean, you and Chris have him, I believe, around quarterback 10. What are your thoughts with this matchup?
So I have Cam QB9 right now. Again, last week I think I had him like QB4. I was pretty high on him. Just that goal line offense that they run with him. I think we can expect over 10 rushing touchdowns this year. So I think he's going to be pretty volatile, but a matchup like this where he's going to be forced to throw will be similar to what we saw against the Seahawks. So I do love Cam this week. But when it comes to QBs I'm high on, I still think that, these QBs in the 7K range are must plays this week. I think you absolutely have to spend up at QB. So, Russ Wilson, Dak, Josh Allen, and Kyler, and Patrick Mahomes even. All these 7K guys, I think if you're going to build 20 lineups, you want to, focus on those guys and their stacks. I think Russell Wilson is just the easiest guy to stack. You can, go Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf or both. So he'll probably be my highest owned QB in GPPs. But the other guy I want to highlight is the QB on the other side of the ball in that game, and that's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's only 5.4K, so if I'm going to spend down, I think he would be the guy. He's my top streamer play this week as my QB14. But I think this could be a shootout, and I had this line projected for about 7.5. So seeing it bet down to BetMGM, it's down to Seahawks minus 6.5. So I think sharps might think that the Dolphins can keep this closer than people realize. So, I with Ryan Fitzpatrick, we always have to worry about him getting benched for Tua, but I think he's pretty safe this week. And if you're playing him in GPPs, you're going for upside anyway. So he's my top cheap flyer this week.
Yeah, Fitz is definitely popping in the Fantasy Labs models. Raybon, I want to get your thoughts on Cam Newton and then a guy that you are high on this week.
Yeah, so Cam is really interesting to me because I actually think he's the perfect GPP quarterback because I could see it going one of two ways. I could see them really kind of limiting him in the pass game, like they've not only shut down Lamar, they've really made it tough on Deshaun Watson. We know Andy Reid is like one of the few coaches in the league that can kind of match up with Belichick. But on the other side, this is perfect for Belichick because they just played, two of the best quarterbacks in the league that have similar skill sets. And I'm just thinking they might run Cam like 25 times. Like this is a number bottom 3 defense and rushing DVOA. And every time quarterbacks are trying to drop back and throw against these guys, they can't do it. Like L'Jarius Sneed is really good. They have a really good kind of underrated secondary that we don't really give a lot of credit to.
Well, good is a stretch. It's better than the run defense for sure. I mean, I think Mathau is, he's the guy who really holds it all together. Sneed could get burnt if their wide receivers weren't Edelman, Harry, and Damiere Byrd.
But they are. But that's this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see your point for sure.
Spagnuolo makes them better with his scheming. Like he's always fun. Like they finished like number 1 or 2 in the league in defense against wide receivers last year, and that was with like corners that like it was like Bashad Breeland and all these guys. So what I'm saying is, this is my point. I think Cam could run like 25 times against this defense. So I think he has QB1 overall upside. But I'm a little more worried about his floor. So, for me, I had Ryan Fitzpatrick circled as well. You want to think about how crazy Russell Wilson is playing. And you look at the Seahawks defense, and they've given up 394 more passing yards than Russell Wilson has thrown for. They are getting into shootouts with everybody because Russ is just scoring so quick. They're being so efficient. So you look at this game, the total's 54. Seahawks giving up the most passing yards in the league. And it could be sloppy with Fitzpatrick. He might throw a pick or two, but they're at home. You just got to go with this is like the cheap guy that could put up like 400 yards. And we've seen Fitzpatrick do it before. So that is like the nut play.
I was wondering if you or Sean would be the first guy to tout Fitzpatrick.
Well, Sean always goes before me. So like, it's always going to be Sean, but it's gotta be Fitz.
All right, Davis, who are you relatively low on?
I think relatively low. For like what they cost, I think it's going to be Deshaun Watson and Jared Goff. I love Deshaun Watson. I think he's great. I'm assuming that this game plays and that it's not called off due to COVID tests or whatever. He's 6,600 on DraftKings. And I think at that point I'd rather go to Kyler. I would rather play Cam Newton. Like, I think that this Texans offense is so spectacularly untalented with Will Fuller playing through some kind of hamstring thing, no offensive line, DeAndre Hopkins gone, playing David Johnson, 85% of the offensive snaps. I know I like David Johnson, buddy. We had so many great memories together. I love you. I think you're great. We all lose our fastball at some point. And I also think that I don't know if they're going to let him run really this year. He has 11 rushing attempts through 3 games. They were all designed, or they were all scrambles, right? These are not designed runs. So I kind of think that Deshaun Watson is like a back-end QB1 rest of season, and I don't think that's the prevailing opinion on him yet.
Sean, who are you relatively low on?
Well, I think Lamar Jackson is overpriced. The prices came out before Monday Night Football, so he's going to be pretty low owned, and I'm going to be fading him. Just at 8,100, he's going to have a bounce back game against Washington for sure, but this is one of those spots where we could see RG3 play most of the fourth quarter. So I just, given the other QBs in the 7K range, his ceiling doesn't compare to these guys. And I think this will be the last week where we see Lamar really significantly priced higher than everybody else. I think he's going to be, right in the 7K range with these guys. So I think after last night, I'm pretty bearish on Lamar going forward. But again, I expect him to bounce back. He has a high floor, but just not worth his price. And the other guy I'm fading is Jared Goff at 6,700. This is just one of those games where the Rams should play with the lead. They're minus 12.5 at BetMGM right now. And they've shown that when they have the lead this year, they're, a very run-heavy team. Right now they have the 7th highest run rate when leading. And they're actually the only team with 40-plus attempts in the top 10 teams. So it's a pretty stable or a more stable metric for them. So this could be a big Darrell Henderson game, Malcolm Brown type game. So If Jared Goff doesn't get involved early, I really worry about his floor here. So I'm fading him at 6,700.
Raymond, I think you're also low on Goff, right?
Yeah, and it's just to do with the price. I mean, 6,700 for, like Davis mentioned it earlier in the show. Like, you can't have one of these drop back passers that's not going to give you anything on the ground. Like, in your
he literally's got to throw for like 500 yards and 5 touchdowns to make optimals with how much these other quarterbacks are scoring.
Yeah, like it just makes no sense. I don't know how he got there. And as Sean said, the Rams are running at a high rate. So yes, Goff could be efficient, and there's a scenario where he gets like 230 yards and 4 touchdowns or something. But it's just way too expensive for all those other guys. I mean, literally anyone else in that tier, even Burrow, who's going against the Jags, who are I believe they're dead last in DVOA against the pass and number 9 against the run. So you have a funnel there. Like, anybody else that can give you something on the ground in that price range, not Goff.
All right. And the guy I'm relatively low on, mentioned him earlier, Patrick Mahomes, not in my top 3. I have him number 5, still a respectable ranking, but a very tough matchup going against the New England Patriots, who I wouldn't say like are automatic to shut him down or anything like that, but I think will be good enough in slowing him down to prevent him from reaching the like atmospheric heights of scoring that we're likely to see from guys like Russell Wilson and Josh Allen, Dak Prescott. Sean, give us the prop.
So last week was Josh Allen passing yards. I felt that was the most uncomfortable projection to make last week. And we're going there again this week because it's still uncomfortable. He cleared 300 yards again. So it's a matter of, how high are we bumping him up? Last week I had him at 255, I think it was, and everybody took under. So I'm going to be careful with this one. But I have it at 278.5.
I'll take the over. I think I wanted to go over last week, but then I went out. I'm just I have it projected for over pretty comfortably. I think I have it at 284. So I'll take the over.
Are you factoring John Brown being out in that at all?
Is he out for sure? Or just like
I think it's not looking good.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for sure. But
I got some Gabriel Davis bids to go adjust.
Yeah, I've got Brown projected for, just like a 4% target share, just sort of like the token like placeholder of I doubt he plays, but I'm just going to put this in here just in case.
I take over. I'm not shorting Josh Allen in any circumstance against any opponent until I see him not do it. I mean, Josh Allen is having the Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott supernova season where like everything is just going to go right for him until it doesn't.
I'll take the under. And the thing about Allen is, listen, he could get this on the ground, and this is like the Raiders, so they could just not show up. I know they're at home and the Bills are going across, but this could be a very efficient game with a couple of rushing scores. He doesn't necessarily have to throw it around, especially if Brown's going to be banged up. So I could see an avenue to Josh Allen killing and him still not throwing for 278 or 279. So I'll go under.
Right, by the way, I should mention that you can check out the Fantasy Labs player prop tool where the props with the bet quality of 10 have a 60% win rate over the past 2 years. And of course, when player props are posted, you can bet on them at BetMGM.